Today we're going to be exploring some more offbeat Edinburgh. That's Edinburgh off the beaten track, well away from the usual tourist traps like Princes Street, the Royal Mile and the Castle. However, there's still a lot to see. Cafes, bars, restaurants, sights and sounds. You just need to know where to look. Today we're going to wander down a spooky, gloomy, abandoned railway tunnel and visit one of Scotland's oldest pubs. I do hope you'll join me. Let's get offbeat again. Today we're beginning our little wander here in Bristow Square, and this magnificent building above us is McEwan Hall. This opened in 1897 specifically as a venue for graduating students. And I think it looks like we've actually arrived as a lot of students are heading in for their graduation ceremony. It's actually quite nice to see Bristow Square like this, completely empty, well, apart from the students, of course, because in the summer this is one of the focal points for the Edinburgh Festival Fringe. It's usually mobbed with people and packed with bars and pop-up restaurants. This building, Teviot Row House, is the venue for the University Union, but of course, like a lot of university buildings in the Fringe Festival, it turns into a venue for comedy shows, concerts, plays, just about anything you can think of. At festival time, this area is littered with fast food pop-ups. These guys must be permanent on the roll. And of course, up ahead, another of those famous old school Edinburgh police boxes, which has been turned into a coffee shop. Steampunk coffee, is that the same as the steampunk in North Berwick? This is George Square Gardens. The proprietors have agreed to allow access to these gardens. If this privilege is abused, it will be withdrawn. This is probably the first time I've ever been in these gardens when it hasn't been the festival. In the summer, there are huge theatres in this square, one of which looks like a gigantic purple cow, the Udderbelly cow. Now it's gorgeous, quiet, and there are loads of squirrels foraging on the floor, finding their last meals to bury before the winter. There are loads of squirrels, but you can't get that close to them. The autumn colours are spectacular. In George Square, we've got the Edinburgh Labyrinth. Well, see how it works. I guess you've got to follow the stones and see if you can not get lost. Perhaps not as difficult as it would be if you were surrounded by high hedges. I know the festival brings a lot of visitors and a lot of cash into the city, but I have to say, I love it when the square is returned to its natural state. The buildings bordering George Square are gorgeous, aren't they? Look like they've been recently renovated, but I love the stonework. Of course, some of the buildings are a little bit more up to date and functional. We're just about to head into Nicholson Square. Coffee, anybody? Look at all those pigeons on the top of that building. We are now about to go onto Nicholson Street, which is one of Edinburgh's lesser-known high streets. On one side of the road, the all-glass Festival Theatre. And over the road, somewhere I want to show you, that is the Surgeons' Hall. There it is, the Royal College of Surgeons of Edinburgh. This is a very pretty square in front of the main entrance of the Surgeons' Hall. I love these statues as well. My father was a medical student here in the late 1940s, so I always feel immensely proud when I visit the Surgeons' Hall. In fact, we brought my dad here a few years before he died, and believe it or not, they presented him with the written scripts that he'd done in his final examinations almost 60 years earlier. They kept everything. He was in tears when he saw those scripts. This is quite poignant. Your Next Breath 2022, a memorial to mark the containment of COVID-19 and the compassion and resilience of NHS healthcare workers. There's an incredible museum here at Surgeons' Hall, only £9.50 to get in. However, they don't allow videoing or photography, which I fully understand because there's a lot of body parts on display. I mean, they are talking about pathology and surgery after all. It is a little bit grim, but it is absolutely fascinating. I would highly recommend you visiting. Well, I always get a little bit emotional when I come here. All right, we're going to carry on walking down Nicholson Street to our next venue. And as this is offbeat Edinburgh, we might find some really quite reasonable coffee houses and places for breakfast. Lounge cafe, perhaps. Breakfast at the Abbey Whiskey Bar, £8.95, or make it big for £9.95. That is offbeat Edinburgh prices. Breakfast in the cafe next door is £10, but this is so much better than Royal Mile prices. Remember when we paid over £17 for breakfast on the Royal Mile? Oh, look down there in the distance, the Salisbury Crags, parts of Holyrood Park and Arthur's Seat. I'm going to see more of that later. There's always some very pretty churches to see down side streets. This is St. Peter's Church. Well, I promised you a dark, spooky, abandoned railway tunnel, and we're nearly there. But before that, here is the Royal Commonwealth Pool. It's quite a backdrop with Arthur's Seat there behind the Commonwealth Pool, known affectionately by the locals as the Commie Pool. This was opened way back in 1970 by Princess Anne for the Royal Commonwealth Games in 1970. It is a pretty dull building, if truth be told, but the backdrop of Arthur's Seat is pretty spectacular, isn't it? That's another view of Salisbury Crags, and if we carry on down this road, we'll end up in Holyrood Park. But we're not going to do that. We're going to go into a housing estate. There's the entrance to Holyrood Park, just for completeness, but we're going to go past this fabulous old post box and walk down there past these blocks of flats. We're looking for something called the Innocent Railway Tunnel. Definitely something you wouldn't know existed unless you knew it existed. Right here, under this block of flats, under this footbridge, here it is. The power of history, the Innocent Railway Tunnel. Famous for its graffiti, and some of it's actually rather good. I hadn't expected the lights to be so bright. I promised you dark and gloomy. This is actually quite bright, although it is echoey. This is quite a steep gradient downwards, much steeper than I was expecting. Now, this was built way back in 1831 as part of a railway line between Dalkeith and Edinburgh. Now, it's called the Innocent Railway Line because it carried on using horse-drawn trains even after the advent of the steam age. This is very popular with cyclists as a shortcut from the city into Holyrood Park, or vice versa, I guess. It's actually quite a hard climb back up into the city, though. What about some of that graffiti? We're getting close to the other end now. And that was the Innocent Railway Tunnel, all 517 metres of it. What do you think? It's a little bit like a portal. You descend into it in the middle of the city, in that housing estate, in fact. You walk through and you're transported into the depths of Holyrood Park. It's almost like a different world once you get to the other end. If we were to continue to follow this path, it would take us along the route of the Innocent Railway, including some other artefacts like a bridge. However, we're not going to do that. We're going to go back up by the side of the tunnel into Holyrood Park. Up these steps, to be precise. We're right up above the tunnel entrance now. We're effectively 500 yards from the centre of Edinburgh, and now hardly the sound of a car or any other engine. Just the birds and a slight breeze and the looming crags of Arthur's Seat. And down there, there's that path following the route of the Innocent Railway. Can you believe this is in Edinburgh city centre? I often think it's absolutely amazing that we have a mountain in the centre of the city, Arthur's Seat. What else do you need? Well, how about a loch? That is Duddingston Loch, looking fabulous with all the autumn colours surrounding it. Shall we head down there? And here on the banks of the loch is Duddingston Village. This is so pretty. And I think there are some easy steps down to the shore of the loch here. We have only walked the equivalent of 3 lengths of that railway tunnel to get to this spectacular spot. This is the epitome of offbeat Edinburgh. That's gorgeous, isn't it, down there? Right, we're going to walk into Duddingston Village. There's a few interesting things to see here, including one of Scotland's oldest, if not the oldest pub in Scotland. There's a gorgeous little church here, Duddingston Kirk. You can definitely feel the power of history here, can't you? Look at the imagery on that tombstone. Looks like a shipwreck memorial. And next door to the kirk, one of Edinburgh's most secret gardens, Dr. Neil's garden. This really is something special. Dr. Neil's garden. And there again, the sign above the door. It's always worth the £3 donation to have a wander around Dr. Neil's garden. It's hard to describe this place. It's like a miniature botanical gardens on the shore of Duddingston Loch. It's stunning in the summer, but beautiful at every other time of the year. I'm blown away by these autumn colours. See what you can find when you wander off the beaten track here in Edinburgh. I did do a longer video about Dr. Neil's garden a couple of years ago, so I'll put a link to that on the screen at the moment. But for now, how do you fancy a pint of beer and maybe some lunch? Let's go and find Scotland's oldest pub. We're looking for the junction of Old Church Lane and the Causeway. And there it is ahead of us. The Sheep hid in Scotland's oldest surviving public house, established in 1360. Well, they say there's definitely been licensed premises here since the 1300s, but obviously that building is much more recent, back into the 1800s, I think. So is it genuinely the oldest pub surviving in Scotland, or have we got a little bit of Trigger's broom going on here? You can get 2 courses for £20.95 or 3 courses of £24.95 from their set lunch menu. Butternut squash rosemary and sage soup, Maine's buttermilk chicken burger, char-grilled gammon steak. Looks pretty good. Now this pub has another secret hidden up the back here. It has a skittle alley. Oh, this is exciting. Have you ever heard of Skittles? Oh, this is magnificent, isn't it? Look. This is like 10-pin bowling, except there are only 9 pins. This is one of the oldest pubs in Scotland, but it's also got one of the oldest skittle alleys in Scotland. Now, I just said there are only 9 pins in a skittle alley, but there are 10 here, so they obviously do 10-pin bowling as well. And the ball return isn't automatic, of course. It just rolls away on its own. You can book nights to come here and play skittles and, of course, drink their beer and eat their food. It's all very friendly. They've given me a sheet here with the history of the Sheep Head and the history of the Skittle Alley. A pint of Belhaven Best. Look at the creamy top on that. £5.65, which is remarkably cheap for Edinburgh. You can have £2 on top of that if you were in the city centre, and we're only a mile or so away. Cheers, here's to you. Oh, that is fabulous. Do you know what? Belhaven Best is one of my favourite beers in the entire world. That is so refreshing and so creamy. Well, thank you so much for joining me on my second video exploring offbeat Edinburgh. I hope I've given you a few ideas for your own visit to our fabulous city. Thank you so much for watching this video. I'll see you on the next one for some more travel adventures and a little drop of history. Like